Well, buongiorno, pirates. We're going to do dividing fractions today. It's very exciting. So multiplying and dividing fractions, if I haven't mentioned, is easier than adding and subtracting fractions. There's no need to get common denominators. And dividing fractions, if you're good with multiplying, it's just one extra step. It's the same as multiplying, one extra step, no problem. You'll need to know three things. Number one, you have to understand what a reciprocal is. What? That's a new word. Reciprocal is a fancy way of saying flipped over fraction. So like, for example, the reciprocal of a half is 2. The reciprocal of 3/5 is 5/3. And then you also have to know how to write whole numbers and mixed numbers as improper fractions. So you have to know that 3 2/5 is equivalent to 17/5. You have to know that for all things you do with fractions, though. So if you don't know that by now, you got to see me. You got to get help on that. You also have to know that if you have 4, you can rewrite that as 4/1. So any whole number, you just put 1 underneath it. Boom, it's a fraction. And you also have to know that dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. That is complex. It sounds horrible. It's actually not. So let's talk about first what the heck a reciprocal is. So we'll go to this little example-y slide right here. So if our original number is 3/5, the reciprocal of that, you take the 3/5 and you flip it over. It's 5/3. That's what a reciprocal is. Easy. A reciprocal and its fraction, when you multiply them, it gives you 1. So that's another way to check. So if you do 3/5 times 5/3 times a reciprocal, the answer is 1 because it's 15/15. Again, if you're not comfortable with multiplying fractions yet, you might want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. Make sure you've done the 2.1 assignment first. See me for help. So all this division stuff assumes that you've already covered multiplication. Okay, the next one, if we have 9/5, what's the reciprocal of 9/5? If you said 5/9, you're right. You just flip over the 9/5. It's 5/9. And to check it, if you multiply those two together, you get 45/45, which is the same as 1. Okay, this third one's a little tricky. So first, how do you write 2 as a fraction? Yeah, it's 2/1. So what's the reciprocal of 2? It is a half. So you take that 2/1, flip it over, it's a half. And you can check it again by multiplying. 2/1 times 1/2 is the same as 2/2 or 1. Okay, so now we're going to go back. We've covered reciprocals. You're going to practice it just a tiny little bit with some little reciprocal problems. So the first one, what is the reciprocal of 3/4? Boom, 4/3. Hopefully you got that. What's the reciprocal of 5? If you said 1/5, you're right. And if you're not sure why, see me during on-demand time. I'll help you out. What's the reciprocal of 7/2? Also known as 3.5. So what's the reciprocal of 3.5? 2/7. Yes. And the last one, what's the reciprocal of 4/9? It is 9/4. Okay, so that's reciprocals. If you have any questions about that, see me. I'll help you out. So when you divide fractions, it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So when you hear that, your head probably explodes. That's really complex. So there's an easy way to remember it. It's known as keep, change, flip. There's a little song. It's all over YouTube. You can check that out. I'll see if I can hide that in our slideshow somewhere. So what it means is you keep the first fraction the same. You change the division symbol to a multiplication symbol, and then you flip over the second fraction. You do the reciprocal. So for example, if you got 1/2 divided by 1/6, you keep the half, you change this division sign to a multiplication sign, and then you flip the second one. You never flip the first one. You only flip the second one to become 6/1, and then you do the multiplication just like you did in 2.1. That's how you do division. It's that easy. All right, so now let's practice some of these. Here we go. We got, where is it? There it is, 1/6 divided by 2/3. Okay, what do you get? Oh, also simplify your answer. All right, let's walk through it. So you take this 2/3, you flip it over, and now it becomes 1/6 times 3/2. Okay, that's big first important step. If you get this, then it's the same as multiplying fractions. So when you multiply, you can do 3/12, which you then have to simplify. You got to simplify it. Or there's this cross-canceling method, which I would highly recommend. And if you need help, come see me. So if you cancel out, divide each side by 3 on top and bottom, you end up with 1/4 as your final answer. Okay, another example. Try this one. It is, where is it? There it is, 4/5 divided by 2. Okay, what's the first thing you want to do? Yeah, first thing you want to do is rewrite that 2 as a 2/1. Okay, so once you got the 2/1, then you got to do the next step. Remember the little shortcut jingly thing, which I should have paused and had you take notes on. I'll add that into the Edpuzzle. So it's keep, change, flip. What do you get? All right, so you keep the 4/5, you change the division to a times, and you flip over the 2/1 to become a half. Then you multiply. You can cross cancel that 4 and the 2, leaving you with a 2 on top and a 1 on the bottom. And your final answer ends up being 2/5. Or you could have multiplied 4/10 and then simplified the 4/10 to 2/5. Okay, sometimes you'll have some that are like word problem examples. Just a little hint for you. If the thing is all about division, then every single word problem is going to be division on big ideas. So we have a piece of wood that's 3 feet long. How many 3/4 foot pieces can you get from that 3 foot piece of wood? So the problem that we're going to be the problem that we're going to do would be what? Yeah, we got to do 3 divided by 3/4. So you can actually draw this. I would not suggest it. So you could draw it, cut them up into fourths, and then divide them each into 3/4. And figure it all out there. Okay, or you can do 3 divided by 3/4, which I want you to write down on your paper and then solve right now. All right, so hopefully you wrote it out like this, 3 divided by 3/4. The 3, you can write it as 3/1. And then you're multiplying, because it's divided by 3/4, you flip that over, you're multiplying by 4/3. The 3/1 will cancel out with the 3 on the bottom, leaving you with just 4 as your final answer. You can get 4 3/4 foot pieces out of a 3 foot long piece of wood. Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about is you are going to have some on big ideas, especially if you're doing spicy, that are order of operations problems. Okay, now just like before where you had to divide and multiply before you add and subtract, you got to do the same thing on big ideas, even if it's fractions or decimals or whatever else. You always do the division before you add or subtract. So for this problem, I'm just going to walk through it real quick. You would first rewrite the 5 as 5/1. And then you're going to remember that when you're dividing by 5/1, that's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 1/5. You then have to multiply it and then keep this 3/8 first. So it's 3/8 plus, and then you multiply. You get 5/30, or you can just simplify it right away by cross-canceling to 1/6. And then it becomes an addition problem. Now, this is going back to extension 1.6. You need a common denominator. You can use 24 or 48. They used 48 for some reason. And then you got to simplify it once it's all done. So 13/24 would be the final answer. So this is about as difficult as you're going to see on the big ideas. If you need any help at all, come see me, see Miss Rude. Send me a question through email or on Flipgrid. But do not give up. Don't think this is too hard. I'm just going to quit. Okay. If you get stuck, get help. All right. Good luck. And I will see you during our next live session. Arr!